This conference will now be recorded.
Excellent. All right, so to all of our attendees, we appreciate your time today. My name is Jim Thames. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Alliances here at Stratodesk, and I'll be moderating, sitting in the middle, asking these two smart guys to answer all the hard stuff. So we also have Hernan with us, who is our Vice President of Sales at Stratodesk, and Doug Layne, who is the President and CEO over at ClearCube, and a great guy, a friend of mine as well. So we're going to really follow the topic. Really, I'm sure you guys saw the word that we phrased, Chipageddon. And if you're on this, then you already know what it's about. But we really wanted to come dive a little deeper into why it is, not really what it is. And so we've got a couple of guys that know more about it than most. So I'm going to just kind of open this up and say, Doug, what do you think was the cause of the impact of Chipageddon? How did it get started?
Well, it's like everybody today, they want to blame everything on COVID. And while it definitely started the process, COVID was the beginning of it. There were a couple of things that happened as a perfect storm. One, the automakers under forecasted what the demand would be. If you guys think back into March, April, May of last year, when all the automakers were offering those deals to come get your car and not make a payment for 6 months, just to make sure that they could keep the sales that they wanted, and actually they had better sales than they ever believed they would. And then you turn into everybody wanted to work from home, and the demand on personal computers, and really you really outstripped the demand of what was available for that chip in the market, while those factories, which are primarily in Asia Pac, were tooling down because they couldn't get workers into the office because of the pandemic. So you had kind of a perfect storm which caused it. If you look at quotes from like the CEO of Intel, he's saying it could be 2 years before they can right the ship. Even while Intel is planning on building their own silicon chip, it's going to be a while before they can tool those factories up and get them online. So we're going to feel the effects of it for a while. And I think that's really where it started. And, companies like Stratodesk and ClearCube have been aware of the situation for a while. As supply chain really gets tight, we've been preparing of how we address those things. Hernan, what do you see on that side?
And that's really funny, Doug, because I remember, I don't know how many weeks back I called you and I was like, hey, so is this chip shortage? Is it really a thing? Because Doug's obviously involved in hardware. So I wanted to get his opinion on this. And it was I think I called you, Doug, originally when it was hearing GM had shut down, I don't know, 3 plants in the US. Like, we're going to stop making cars altogether because there's just not chips out there to put in these vehicles. And then that's when you told me, well, Ford stopped that 2 months ago. And so that kind of perpetuated. I started reading a lot of articles, and we are definitely finding that, being a software manufacturer, a lot of our customers, a lot of new customers are coming to us because the shortage is impacting across the world in so many different ways. And I think, Doug, you did an eloquent explanation of some of the factors. I thought it was kind of funny because I read some of those articles too, where they said, we weren't planning, we backed off our demand of chips at the beginning of COVID, right?
Yep.
They were like, oh, we're not going to be selling anything. And then all of a sudden, well, all these kids doing school from home, not everyone had a laptop or a tablet or something. And so then work from home, all the enterprises are now sending everyone home. So I think it was, gosh, hindsight being 2020, it would have been a much different story if we knew that ahead of time. But it's definitely impacting, in not just chips. I'm finding it a lot of, like, in my personal life, things that I'm ordering. I'm finding that the lead time for just materials and metals and so forth are drastically increasing lead times, and I can't get things so quick anymore. So and I love the fact that Doug, that ClearCube and Stratodesk has partnered together and said, let's address this. Let's find a way that we can make an impact to all of our customers, those customers yet to be, to help the tech community know of a different solution to help them move forward throughout this. We want to help.
No doubt, no doubt. And the areas that you see, I mean, when we talk about chips in general, people are really kind of confused. I mean, are we talking about like a memory chip? Are we talking about, they have chips that are like IC? And so really, if you break it down into those couple of categories, the integrated circuit chips, those are the ones that really kind of control your power management, your displays. That's one set. And really, that's the 200 millimeter wafer. That's that first wave of chips. That's what your automakers are using, and that's one area. Then you've got the complex pieces that are more logic chips. Those are your Qualcomms, your NVIDIA, your Apple, and so now you've got a whole nother market that's affected when you look at the number of cell phones that are out there, and people that are, Apple just released another purple model, and you've got NVIDIA blowing up because of Bitcoins and mining. And so, you see these things happening in the world at the same time. There's just no way that these guys can keep up on it. And so that's where, this balance of saying, okay, where do you invest? How do you invest? I read something the other day too, Hernan, that the vials they're using for the virus, what is it, the shot you get?
The vaccine.
Oh, the vaccine.
The vaccine, they use silicon to produce the vials. And so that was another thing that ate up a lot of the early capacity. So you're looking at, an area where, nobody predicted where we're going to be. And then to your point, Hernan, the other things that are being affected, we've got a cardboard shortage. With the Suez Canal, we were just talking about it, and the backup it calls with the port. You can't get containers off the ship, which means there's no containers to refill and send out of the country. So you get this trickle-down effect. What you've got to try to do as an organization is to over-communicate. That's what we've tried to do, at least with our customers and our prospects, is to let them know, hey, if you give us the heads up, it's all about the forecast. If Ford and GM had forecasted last year at the beginning of pandemic, they probably wouldn't have put themselves in this situation. Even though pandemic was always going to affect the factory, it comes down to your ability to communicate what you really need. Nobody knew everybody was going to move to home and how long it was going to last in the beginning. So nobody knew they were going to have a 3x spike in personal computers.
Right.
So now we are here. Now what do you do to kind of address that?
And one thing that I learned, Doug, you mentioned the Suez Canal, and I think that debacle lasted, honestly, a week before they were able to, something like that, 7 to 10 days.
Yep.
But we're finding the impact of that and what it did to supply chain is it's not like your stuff just got delayed a week. It got delayed much longer than that. And so maybe the short-term impact, maybe this was 7 days, but you're finding that that's becoming more like 30, 60, 90 days, what that single instance, that single situation, what that did. And so, again, it comes into that long-term planning, that long-term strategy of thinking,
yep.
And what were you saying? Everyone's doing expansion into their plants to build more and to make more. Well, great, that'll be good in 3 years. We'll see you then. What do we do now?
Right.
Exactly right. How do we address the situation today? And for those people that are still trying to figure out, do I bring agents back? Do I bring people back to my office? Or am I still going to work remote? What is my transition plan to have my people work remote? How do I do it? I think that's our partnership of what we created with Stratodesk and why there's a benefit to being able to repurpose a PC or being able to take advantage of existing hardware while you may be waiting on an order of a thin client or your next order of PCs. I know I'm jumping ahead of you, Jim, because you've got some questions to ask, but I want to make sure that we really kind of laid that groundwork that we didn't get here overnight, and it's not going to be an overnight fix, that we really are going to feel this for a while. and that we're going to all have to work together and over-communicate what our needs are, but also look at alternative plans of how to address the long-term issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And to all the attendees, I just put in the chat, if you guys have questions that you'd like me to ask during this as moderator, I've just put them in the chat stream, and I'll ask them as I get a break here and there in the conversation. So you guys mentioned a couple of specific industries, automotive. We obviously know that the PC manufacturers and the hardware manufacturers. Are there any other industries that you guys are seeing big impacts? I mean, I think they're all.
You're going to see
pretty much everybody.
Yeah, you're going to see everything from cell phones. As I said, the cardboard shortage has been another issue. Foam has been another area that's impacted. When you look at what the foundries can produce and what they can't, your largest foundries are in that South Korea, Taiwan region, with like TSMC being the largest and Samsung being the second largest. And then you have the other group. If you start to look at what that effect is going to be on the PC markets in general, it doesn't matter if you talk to Dell, HP, Lenovo, any of the guys out there that are building them today. If you build a model that uses a chip, and Intel's a really good example of that. We were using an Intel NUC for a specific customer. It was an 8th gen Celeron NUC, and it became really a long lead time. And so I started asking the questions early on, what was causing that? And part of the problem was the Realtek audio chip. And so Intel's solution to that was, we'll just take the audio, we'll build the board without the audio chip on it and deliver it. We'll change the model number and add an N to the back of it, and we'll still be able to produce it. That takes a certain amount of nimbleness or flexibility to be able to see that and then take that and do something with it. That's where we as a company have really kind of taken that. And to your question is like, what other industries are going to be affected? It can be anything from a monitor company. It could be anything from sheet metal. It could go all the way down to, the person that's making that one audio chip that goes into, a NUC board. And so when you finally get to the answer, now it's how do I repackage this? And so for those customers that need audio, you're going to use a USB to audio converter, and you're still going to get your audio out, but you got a plan for that. Does that mean that USB to audio converters are available off the shelf? You got to look at that before you make that decision and go down that path.
Excellent. So how are you at ClearCube adopting, and adapting to the shortages? What's your strategy? As I know you've helped us out with a couple of customers recently that came and said, hey, we need thousands of units, and you were able to source them. So interesting to see, how you're doing things differently than a couple of the other manufacturers who are flat.
Well, it goes back to being nimble, and it goes back to your partners. And so, we work with well-reputable partners. So having a relationship with Stratodesk at the highest levels allows us to take that software and use it to repurpose to maybe bridge a gap while you wait for an order to be filled. But when I talk about being nimble, it's about being flexible. So as I was talking about the Intel and having a new device because no Realtek audio, we are able to change a device in a matter of days versus weeks or months. So we're not going to tool up and produce 10,000 of a unit and set it on the shelf and then hope we sell it. If this particular chip isn't available and we need to move up a level in processor, or an 8 gig memory chip's not available, but you could put in a 16, or you couldn't get a 64 gig flash memory, you needed to go to 128 or back down to a 32. Having that level of flexibility is what really gives us that key differentiator to bring a product to market much quicker. So we can make a change on the fly. We have an awesome supply chain that we forecast to regularly, but remember what I said, that open communication. So it's the conversations I'm having at the highest level with the companies that want something that say, look, it's not that we're planning on doing a buy in the summer and we want to know availability. Here's what I'm going to forecast to you. Here's what I'm going to commit to the business, and when can I have it? Those you're going to get a priority for. That's how we can come in. And then planning. So I'll work with Stratodesk and the company that we're talking about that needed a couple of thousand seats. What's their fallback plan if they can't get them?
Right.
And obviously we got to go back. And Hernan, how would you address that? If you came back and I said, look, I can't get you, 1,500 seats overnight. So how are you going to fix that problem for them short term?
And see, and I was going to piggyback onto your story of agility, because I believe that's where Stratodesk and ClearCube, where we do very well together. We're both very agile. We're both very nimble. And let's face it, we're both very customer centric. We're very customer focused. And, at the beginning, I said, how we can help. I mean, I believe that's truly at the core of our business, Doug, is for both of us, is that we, yes, we're in business, no doubt, but we do care about our clients and we want to do the best that we can to address needs. And let's face it, during this pandemic, it's been crisis central for everyone. And so we want to make it as easy as possible in the times that are hard. You got so many other things to deal with. Let us help you. And how Stratodesk now can partner with ClearCube, right? Because ClearCube's on the one part is they're absolutely hardware. However, being one of our platinum partners, our premier partners, Doug, you also have adopted the software, that where you're willing to say, hey, customer, if you don't need hardware, we have the software. And if you need a hybrid approach, you want software and hardware, we have you. If you want only software for now, we have you. And that's where I believe our partnership is very unique. And the fact that our companies care about customers, we're quick and focused on what the customer needs, we're able to get on that very, very fast. And having, now to go back to answer your question, I'm going the long way around, but yeah, the software only, right? So we give you the ability as an enterprise, as a customer, to use your existing hardware. And ClearCube can help provide that for you as well, right? They can help provide that software. And so when the ship rights and the hardware begins to come back in, as Doug does his efficient ordering and being able to forecast that from his manufacturers, he can then begin to deliver hardware. But folks, if we can deliver to you today to get that software installed on your existing equipment, we're here to help and we can make that happen. And it doesn't matter what VDI platform you have, we can help you in that situation.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point there too, is because to Hernan's point there, it's instantaneous. If you decide, hey, look, you know what? We know we're going to go and roll out X number of users, or we want to push this number of people to a home-based system, or, this is going to be our long-term strategy. We're able to take that software, that no-touch software, put it on a disk on key, send it home with the user. They can plug it in the system, reboot it. That turns their home PC into their office machine. They unplug that disk on key. It's back to being their home PC. So again, my full capability of management from a remote location or centralized management, but still giving me that instant on or a way to leverage it while we're waiting for our order to arrive. But remember, it's not just about how quickly can we deploy it, because I can tell you, if I place an order with Stratodesk, within hours I can get you keys. It's also about that planning. How am I going to manage it? How am I going to roll it out? How is it centrally managed? What's the benefit of that? What if somebody gets home and they don't know how to do it? Where am I going to get the support from? And to Hernan's point, when you're joined together like we are as an organization, we're an extension of their support. They're an extension of my support. So either way, you're going to get your answer, but you're going to feel the love from companies that do care about the customers and that do want you guys to be successful in that process.
And let's take them into a point. Doug is the hardware guy, and he's the one talking to you about software, right? How are, where are you going to get that from other folks out there? And I think that just proves the point of what we're talking about, that we care for our customers. And,
Yeah.
we both have outstanding products and we augment each other. But as companies, we're also focused together. And to be cliche, we're better together for you as an end customer. And if you're a partner, we'd love to help solve your customer solutions as well. Look into us. We'd be happy to help.
And and to Doug's point about the no touch, in a dual boot type situation, with the shortage going on right now, we can provide the software provides a bridge of that technology. If you need it today, we can do the conversion on existing home units and BYOD devices while Doug solves the problem of getting a device that you really desire to have at that endpoint. So we can, and once the profile is all set up in no touch, then it's converting it by when they get their new device, they're going to have the same experience. It provides that, connectivity and continuity of experience.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, Jim, because so now we can get into maybe a little bit more of what the software actually does. But if you're an existing, enterprise, and it doesn't make a difference what type of hardware you have, whether it be a fat PC, a desktop sitting at home, a thin client, a laptop, even from a Stratodesk and ClearCube perspective, if you're running a Raspberry Pi ARM processor, we can help you with that as well. Even converting some of those Pi devices for IoT, we can help you with that as well. And to Jim's point, we've had customers that were able to deploy Stratodesk on several hundreds of endpoints geographically dispersed within a few hours, literally overnight. So, if you're in that, oh my goodness scenario where you need help today, that's something that we can address and help you right away.
And Hernan, we just got a question from Mark on the session asking, can Stratodesk connect to cloud solutions?
Yes. So very good question. I totally appreciate that. So first of all, our centralized management is an OVA file. And from a Stratodesk perspective, if you're running that virtual appliance on-prem or in the cloud, we support you either way. We're not going to influence you. So again, this is part of that flexibility that we provide for you as a customer to do what makes the most business sense for you. And so when I say you can run that virtual appliance in the cloud, so if you're running your own instance of your cloud, you can spin up that OVA in your own cloud, but as well, we can host that for you. So we are certainly being able to help you with that. And we have several customers doing that today successfully. Great question. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback onto that too, Hernan, that, you talked a little bit about the different types of hardware available. That's one of the benefits of working with a smaller organization like ClearCube as well, where we have the breadth of choice. And so it can start with a Pi. It can be something as simple as I need single monitor, maybe I want dual monitor, maybe I want an x86 device. I need quad monitor. I need something that's got more graphics capability. One of the areas we saw a huge need for moving through the pandemic was the ability to have cameras so I can use Zoom calls, and not every device would support it. So that type of technology, that type of software hardware solution is really, it's just not easy to find somebody that's done the homework, that's put the work behind it to make sure you're going to get the solution that best solves the problem. We're not out there just trying to move boxes. We're trying to find solutions that truly solve problems for you and give you long-term solutions, not just sell you a box and then hope you're fine and on your way. And with this relationship between Stratodesk and ClearCube, you'll see that partnership as we find newer devices. We were one of the first to take on the no-touch OS and put it on a Raspberry Pi that gives you the connectivity back to VMware, that could connect back to Citrix, that can get you a VDI or a remote desktop solution. They've gone as far as partnering with companies like Teradici and giving you a PCOIP protocol.
Right.
They're really in depth with Citrix and VMware, and constantly as those protocols change, you'll see Stratodesk really tightly joined with those organizations to make sure that those OSs are up to date and getting you the latest and greatest features from those as well.
And I love that Doug has the passion to put that out there too, right? As clear. And I'm sorry, Doug, I don't mean to ever just label you the hardware guy, but it's just like you just blow me away.
That's what we are.
You put a big smile on my face because hardware, but man, he's pounding Stratodesk out there, and I love it. And in addition, we're piggybacking off each other. Sorry, Jim. But so on top of VMware and Citrix, we also had a relationship with Microsoft for WVD, and we were the first manufacturer to put WVD available on a Raspberry Pi ARM platform. So we are never the box doesn't stay the same. We're not trying to stay in our box. We're always pushing boundaries. We're looking to do more. We're listening to our customers. So that's the VDI environments. What about if you just need a web browser? You just want to do a kiosk with web, or if you just want web access for someone at home, but you want it secure, we can certainly satisfy that as well. And one thing that, we haven't gone into a lot of detail yet, but you've heard us mention it, the centralized management is really, that's the game changer. And no touch center, which is what we call our centralized management, that is what makes the difference. And the soup to nuts, the solution that it can provide for you is extraordinary, and it grows with you as a business. You may start off with a very generic VDI endpoint strategy. And then, as we all know, as acquisitions happen, as you begin to grow as a company, then the demands on that infrastructure grow. Well, No Touch Center can easily grow with you because you will find all of the capabilities that it is able to solve for the large enterprises right out of the box. And Doug, it's really exciting. I mean, we're involved in half a dozen at least sizable enterprise opportunities out there that, let's face it, they're not easy. They're really complex. No. And together, I mean, I believe every time we get asked, we hit it out of the park. I'm a little biased, of course, but we've been doing an amazing job at solving for these enterprise customers.
Hernan, I count
no
on
doubt, no doubt. I think that shows with the passion that you bring to that one as well. But you hit a really good point there, is that it's not for, it's not a really small device. If you want this to roll and scale, it can. And the point being is it doesn't necessarily have to be a software only. Most times it's going to be the hybrid approach. And that's why when you see that customer ask the question about, can it work on the cloud? We don't have a single customer today, jointly or separately, that is running the exact same thing across every desktop. You've got customers that are going to run full-size PCs. They need mobility with laptops. They want thin clients where they can get back into their VDI infrastructure. That's where you really want to go to the vendors that understand those environments and can work with you and even scale to that enterprise level. And I can tell you, we're working with companies that can do it. I see you had another question come in, Jim.
Yep, I do. So Mark has asked another good question. In the same relative term, we were talking about repurposing existing BYOD or older hardware. How would he then transfer the license onto hardware that he gets after the fact?
So that's a really good question because, and I think, Doug, we do this so often together that I forget, I don't want to assume that any information is known. So because of our partnership with ClearCube, that's a good question. Doug has the ability, he'll OEM any of his gear with our OS on there, whether it be a Raspberry Pi or any of his x86 devices. And so Doug can certainly, from ClearCube, which is a clear advantage over many of the other OEMs out there. But you can get a ClearCube device, show up at either your, the actual end user's home or within the enterprise location, but you can get it showing up there with our OS on there. Now, if you're buying licenses, but then the hardware comes in and now you want to transfer that license from a BYOD or an old asset and you want to put it on a new asset, that's all part of No Touch Center, which is a centralized management. And by the way, we don't charge you anything extra to do that. It is there for you to have the manageability to do what you need. So it is simply going into your centralized management, deactivating that license from whatever that endpoint is, putting the new endpoint into No Touch Center, applying that license, and you're up and running. So it literally is that easy. And once that endpoint is put into a group, it picks up its configuration, and within minutes, it's ready to go. So we make that seamless. It doesn't cost you any money, which then again lends to this partnership with ClearCube, because we don't want to ding you or penalize you as the customer for buying software first and then having to get dinged afterwards from the manufacturer. No, we make that partnership together to make it better for you as a customer. Hope that answers the
And that's a
question.
great point. And from the ClearCube side, we have the flexibility to sell it with an OS or without an OS. So if you tell us, hey, I'm going to use my repurposed keys, awesome, then we'll sell it to you without the OS. The customer we were talking about earlier that was a lead from Stratodesk that needed a couple of thousand units, they were simply, hey, we're already, a tier one customer. We're buying all of our OS from Stratodesk. We've got enough extra licenses. We want a few units to test. It was simple for them just to take them in and then put their predefined image onto that when the device was hooked up. All it needed to do was see No Touch Center, and boom, it pulled down the image it was looking for. It's set up and ready to go in minutes. So simple, easy, and again, back to that whole flexibility standpoint of we're going to work with you in such a way that, yes, are we still in a pandemic? No doubt. Do we have supply chain constraints? No doubt. When you build software, it's easier to deliver it. We're getting keys in hours. So we're able to help you get to some of those goals without necessarily breaking the bank, and then allow you to take that same capital purchase, if it were a capital expense purchase, and apply it to an appliance later on down the road.
Excellent. Well, I think this has been really good information. It was originally slotted for an hour, and I think we had internally determined we were probably going to go about around 30 minutes. So we're going to end up at about 38 minutes for the entire meeting. Is anyone else have questions that they'd like to pose before we close it out?
And just to go ahead and mention, you can go, please go to ClearCube's website. They're great friends in Austin, Texas, or suburb of Austin. I guess I shouldn't generalize, right, Doug? It's just outside.
We're there. We're close enough to Austin. You can see it.
Okay, that's good enough. And then, so go to ClearCube's website, go to Stratodesk website. You can get a free trial download from us anytime that you want. Just go and try that. You get a full complement of our solution, including No Touch Center. And we invite for you to take a look and get a hold of our friends at ClearCube. If you're looking for devices, they can get it for you. And we're so thankful.
That's a really good point. If you hit sales at ClearCube and in an email, you don't want to talk to a sales guy, email us. Let me know what your basic parameter is for what you need in hardware, the kind of quantity you're looking for, and I can promise you we'll give you the right expectation right up front and let you know exactly your lead time and availability.
Reach out to us if you have a question. You know, we're here to help, and we really appreciate you guys attending today.